And welcome to the latest webinar from the International Energy Agency. Today we are launching the Portugal in-depth review, and we are delighted to be joined today by the Minister of Environment and Climate Action from Portugal, Mr. João Matos Fernandes. We will first hear from our Executive Director, Dr. Patty Birol, and then following that, we will have a brief presentation from our energy analyst, Peter Journey-Kaler, who will present the main findings of the IDR. After that, we will turn to Mr. Minister for some comments. We will then take questions from the press. So without further ado, and we hope to take as many questions as possible and within the time allotted, which is about 30 minutes or so. So without further ado, I'd like to turn the floor to Dr. Patty Birol. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Mr. Minister, dear members of media, dear colleagues who are following this event. Today, we are going to release the review of the energy policies of Portugal. At the International Energy Agency, every 5 or 6 years, we are visiting our governments and the member countries, their energy ministries, energy industry, different stakeholders, to take a stock how their energy policies, climate policies are evolving, and provide some expert feedback. And this time it was the year of Portugal. We had a team of different governments coming together. The team leader was from Switzerland. We had also experts from the governments of Austria, Germany, Ireland, Netherlands, Spain, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom. And my colleague Peter, who is going to talk in a few minutes, is going to tell you the report we put together. I would like to thank the government of Portugal, and in particular the Directorate General for Energy and Geology, for its excellent cooperation during the review visit and throughout the in-depth review process. During the 2 weeks of our team from different governments spoke with the many energy stakeholders in Portugal, including different ministries, regulators, energy companies, associations, system operators, consumer groups, academia, and NGOs. I would like to thank them too for their time. So when we look at the Europe or more broadly world, we are seeing that the many governments around the world pushing the agenda of clean energy transitions. It is making use of the existing clean energy technologies such as renewable energies, such as efficiency, such as electric cars, but also preparing the way for the next clean energy technologies to be a part of the market, such as hydrogen, advanced battery technologies, and others. We need both the governments and the industry and other stakeholders to be part of this process. But as we always say, when it comes to clean energy transitions, governments are in the driving seat. Governments clear priority setting, providing the right incentive, right policies are definitely critical. In some countries, we see that the clean energy transition's targets are there, but the policies to reach those targets are not yet there. In others, we see that there is a growing gap between the rhetoric, what the governments say, and what is happening in the real life. But when it comes to Portugal, I can comfortably say that Portugal is and has been a leader in clean energy transition. So therefore, I would like to commend the Portuguese government and you, Mr. Minister, for taking the clean energy transitions seriously and making huge efforts in terms of pushing the clean options and taking the dirty options slowly but surely out of the market. So you are doing two excellent things simultaneously, pushing the clean energy options and also phasing out the options, dirty energy options, which are causing environmental damage in Portugal. And I can tell you that your work in Portugal is a good example for many others in Europe and beyond. Of course, in our report, we not only comment different success stories in Portugal, but we also made some recommendations for Mr. Minister and the rest of the government and the Portuguese energy circles to consider, ranging from the financial instruments to the issues related to renewable energy, electric cars, and the research and development strategy, which is going to be outlined by my colleague Peter Journey Keller. Peter, can I turn to you, please?
Thank you, Dr. Burrell, and thank you, Mr. Minister. Since the last IEA Energy Policy Review, Portugal has made notable progress on energy transition and is set to achieve its 2020 targets for greenhouse gas emissions, renewable energy, and energy efficiency. In addition, the government has developed ambitious strategies defining a path to decarbonization by 2050. Portugal has also launched an effective renewable energy auction process that should lead to almost 2 gigawatts of additional renewables capacity coming online in the next few years. In a major step that will lower emissions, Portugal is phasing out coal-fired electricity generation this year. Contributions to energy transition come from all regions of Portugal. The autonomous island regions of the Azores and Madeira are pioneering innovative options for the integration of high shares of solar PV and wind. However, notable challenges remain. Portugal continues to rely on imported fossil fuels, which accounted for over 3/4 of its energy supply in 2019. Emission reductions have stalled in recent years, and strong action is needed to ensure the achievement of 2030 targets. A small number of incumbent players dominate Portugal's energy markets. More effort is needed to remove barriers to the new market players and the innovative services needed for a flexible energy system. In addition, more effort is needed on energy efficiency, especially in buildings. And there are opportunities to reduce energy demand and tackle energy poverty through targeted renovations. Portugal was among the first countries in the world to adopt 2050 climate neutrality goals. And Portugal's roadmap for carbon neutrality defines a clear path to economy-wide decarbonization by 2050. Portugal's National Energy and Climate Plan identifies supporting measures to be implemented through 2030 to put Portugal on a path to carbon neutrality. The push for carbon neutrality comes primarily through broad electrification of all energy demand, a rapid expansion of renewable electricity, and increased energy efficiency and renewables. Portugal aims for renewables to cover 47% of energy demand by 2030 and almost 90% by 2050. In line with this effort, electricity should cover around 1/3 of energy demand by 2030 and 2/3 by 2050. Looking to the longer term, Portugal aims for hydrogen to play a notable role in its energy system and in achieving carbon neutrality, and the National Hydrogen Strategy supports scaling up both the production and the use of renewables from hydrogen produced from renewables. Portugal has made steady progress on reducing its emissions from 2005 to 2014. However, since this point, emission reductions have increased and become more variable. GHG emissions come mainly from gas-fired electricity generation, transport, and industry. And in 2017, wildfires caused a major increase in GHG emissions. Notably, Portugal is facing higher risks of wildfires driven by climate change. Portugal's ambition is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 45 to 55% by 2030 compared to 2005. It is possible that Portugal will have to raise its ambition on emissions reductions to support the recent increase in the EU-wide 2030 emissions target. The government should review Portugal's 2030 GHG target to ensure that it supports the more stringent EU target, and also to narrow the bandwidth of the target to provide more clarity to all actors. Economic impacts notably reduced Portugal's energy demand from 2005 to 2012. Since the economy started to recover in 2014, energy demand has remained relatively stable, while GDP has actually increased by almost 13%. This shows a promising decoupling of economic growth from energy demand. Energy demand has also undergone structural changes. While energy demand from transport and buildings increased in line with the economic recovery, energy demand from industry has continued to decline, reflecting an ongoing shift in the Portuguese economy towards the service sector. Portugal's 2030 efficiency targets require notable demand reductions from all sectors. However, it is likely that even stronger demand reductions will be needed to achieve the EU-wide targets and secure a path to carbon neutrality. Government should investigate more ambitious policies and potentials for cost-effective measures to accelerate reductions in energy demand, especially for buildings and transport. Portugal is an international leader in renewable energy, especially the integration of generation from variable wind and solar PV. Together, these two resources covered almost 30% of Portugal's electricity generation in 2019. Portugal has targets for renewables to cover almost half of its total energy demand by 2030 and aims to meet this through a rapid expansion of renewable generation and electrification across the economy. The National Energy and Climate Plan sets a goal to almost double renewable generation capacity by 2030, led by a near tenfold increase in PV capacity and a near doubling of wind capacity, including some offshore floating wind. Portugal's existing policies are well aligned to support an expansion of renewable generation. However, measures supporting renewables in transport and renewables in heating and cooling are less well defined and rely on the strong push for electrification. And this will require large investments, notably in electric vehicle charging infrastructure and in the renovation of buildings. As we've seen, Portugal's energy policy relies heavily on electrification, and the country has notable success in this area. In 2019, electricity covered a quarter of total demand and over half of building demand. However, Portugal's high electricity prices are a barrier to continued and accelerated electrification. In 2019, industrial energy prices ranked the 7th highest among IEA members, while household electricity prices ranked the 8th highest. A key reason for these high prices is the large share of non-energy costs in electricity bills. In 2020, only 1/3 of the average household electricity bill came from energy-related costs, and only about half of the average industry electricity bill came from energy-related costs. There is a need to create appropriate price signals that will drive businesses and households to invest in electrification, in particular for transport and for heating and cooling. I now pass the floor back to Dr. Birol to present the report's key recommendations.
Thank you very much, Peter. So let's finish our report by some recommendations from us for the Mr. Minister and for the government. First of all, I think there is a need to accelerate the reform to align energy taxes with decarbonization goals so that the we are sure that those taxes reaches its objectives to bring the emissions down. Second, in the electricity markets, there is a need to further enhance the competition. There are some barriers to address those barriers. And we think that while we see great efforts on the onshore and offshore wind, there is a support, there's a need for further support for stronger deployment, both for onshore and offshore wind. And talking about energy efficiency, the giving a priority for the deep renovations will be critical, both in terms of improving energy efficiency, reducing the emissions, but also, maybe more importantly, reducing energy poverty. Transport sector, as in most of the countries in Europe and beyond, is one of the stubborn sectors when it comes to decarbonization. We think there is a need for a clear strategy for the transport sector decarbonization, and especially the issue here is the how we move from the private transportation cars to use public options, including the railway. And finally, as I said, the existing policy options are good. We have to make the most out of this renewables, efficiency, and electric cars, but we need new technologies to be part of the solution. Therefore, a clear reshaped energy R&D strategy, which are aligned by the our decarbonization goals, would be of critical importance. So we are once again extremely happy with the developments in the Portuguese energy sector, both in terms of the addressing our climate and energy goals, but also providing more input for a competitive energy market. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Birol. I would like now to turn the floor to His Excellency, Mr. Minister, for your comments, please. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you for this in-depth assessment. It is really important for us. And I do agree with almost all the things that was said. First of all, when you say that we are a leader, that we are very committed, and that we have the conditions, if we foster what we are doing, to reach the targets for 2030. I'll start to say that in the past, we have accomplished all the targets that we have. And we surpassed them. For you to have an idea, for 2020, we need to achieve renewable in final energy consumption. Our target was 31%, and we reached 34%. So it was really an important year, and that's also why the European Union said that Portugal, it's really one of the European countries which is able to fulfill the targets for 2030 in an assessment that have two different points of view. The first one is about the track record that we have, and the second criteria is about the how important and how that are our proposals. So our proposal, how realistic, it was the word that was missing, how realistic are our proposals. Yes, we need to invest on energy efficiency on buildings. We need to talk about electricity prices. We need to reduce energy poverty. We need to do better in transports. But when we look to the resilience and recovery plan, we have about 16 billion euros coming from the European Union. All those things are, and I will talk after about electricity prices. But all those investments are in the heart of this recovery plan. We have more than 1 billion euros to invest on public transport, all in hydrogen or electric. We launched already a program for the energy efficiency on buildings. We have 135 million euros. For you to have an idea, we launched the first call about 30 million euros to support 20,000 dwelling units. And we launched it about 15 days ago, 2 weeks ago. We expect that this money could for people till November, and we almost have already committed half of the money in less than 1 month. So people are really, they do want to reduce what they are paying, of course, but at the same time they are really concerned with their welfare and also with energy and environmental issues. At the same time, I hope that at the end of this month, we will have vouchers to help 100,000 people which are in energy poverty condition to renew their houses and to have more efficient equipment. What can we say about electricity prices? We almost don't have coal in Portugal. The big the big plant has closed on February, and the other one, which is much smaller, will close on November. But we still have a big amount of gas. And you know that in Iberian Peninsula, it's the gas that fixed the price for electricity, for electricity. And as the carbon tax is raising, normally the prices, the gross prices on the spot market have to grow. But to have such an amount of electricity coming from renewables, it's the best insurance that we can have. So what we have to do is still invest in here. And you talk about offshore wind, that's true. We will have lots of projects to develop during this decade. We will make some improvements in the onshore wind that we have. We know that all the electricity that comes from dams, and it comes since the 40s or the 50s on the last century, we want to have more water in a country with water scarcity to produce more electricity coming from dams, but definitely the solar will increase a lot. When we start, we have less than 1 gigawatt about 4 years ago. Now we have 1.5 gigawatts, and definitely we will end this decade with 8 to 9 gigawatts. And this is really be the big game changer that we have in here. Also on mobility and on private mobility, 5 years ago, only 1% of the cars coming into markets were electric. On last month of April and May, we have a quota of 16%. For you to have an idea, our goal for 2030 is to have 1/3 of the mobility will be electric at the end of this decade. And I think that we can really reach these targets. Yes, 59% of the electricity consumed in Portugal come from renewables. And Portuguese have to pay a lot for it. In the past, and we are still paying it, we have to pay a lot to have these important figures. Nowadays, with the auctions and with the reality that the electricity coming from renewables is much cheaper to produce when compared with oil or coal or gas, mainly because we have now at European level an important tax to use carbon and to have carbon emissions. This is also very important to change what we have. So thank you for your assessment. You are very realistic, of course, but the results are very good for our country. And we believe that we will agree with your suggestions, and thank you for your help to help us to put those suggestions as real. But I think that when I read the suggestions that you made to us, I can almost say that those are the suggestions that we made to ourselves.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. We're now going to take some questions from the press. We will take a 1-minute break so we can collect the questions. And for the reporters who are on the Zoom call, I would ask you to please send us your question through the Q&A box on the Zoom panel. We'll take a very short break and we'll be right back with you. Thank you very much. Number of questions, which I will read out. The first questions, perhaps Your Excellency, I will direct to you. The first two questions, what lessons can be shared from the successful renewable energy auctions for 2019 and 2020? And what are the plans for future auctions? And then the second question is, what role does the government see for hydrogen in your long-term plans? We have a third question I will address to Dr. Birol. What key steps can Portugal take to accelerate its energy transition, especially in light of the recent increase in EU ambitions to 2030? So, Mr. Minister, first, the two questions on the lessons from the successful renewable auctions for 2019 and 2020, and plans for future auctions, and the hydrogen plans, please. Thank you.
Well, thank you. The last two auctions were really a success. We beat twice the world record on lowest price, and most of the solar farms coming from the first auction are already licensed. They are under construction, and the one on the second will be also be constructed very soon. We will launch a third auction in September, now to use the water plants in dams. We have many dams in Portugal. We also have a problem that we don't have many points to make the connections on the transport grid, but which is very obvious, all those dams have already that connections to the grid. So without using soil, and people are all for the renewable electricity, but most of them are against new solar farms. It's very hard to make the merge of these two wills. But the next auction will be on water dams, so we won't have problems with it. It will be about 0.5 gigawatts that we will put in auction. The last one was about 0.6, and the first one about 1.3. But at the same time, there are many projects that are being as well simply developed by companies, by private companies outside of the auction. Do we prefer the auctions? Definitely yes, because when we have the auctions, we know that we will have a gain for all the consumers, because the price that we can fix is always lower than the market price. About hydrogen, When we talk about hydrogen in Portugal, we are always talking about green hydrogen. Always talking about green hydrogen. We know that decarbonization and electrification are not synonymous. So there are some processes that, to be cost effective, we still need to use gas. And of course, to be carbon neutral, those gases have to be renewable gases. We are also putting our bets in two different kinds of gases, the biomethane and the green hydrogen. And there are many, we have a clear strategy that is very open and it's well known. And we already fixed what will be the financial support that we'll have. For you to have an idea, in Sines, which is a big hub on energy and a big port in the south of Portugal, we have 6 very big projects to produce green hydrogen. And we have also a very big cluster in the north of Portugal, mainly linked with the chemical industry. So when we talk about hydrogen and green hydrogen, at the beginning, we are talking about storage of electricity. We were talking about put green hydrogen in the nets. We were talking about things like this, but definitely those things still exist, that's true. But I would say that the big projects in green hydrogen in Portugal come from the chemical industry and have the direct target to reduce emissions in that industry.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. When it comes to my question, what key steps can Portugal take to accelerate its energy transition, especially in the light of the recent increase in the EU's ambitions? Now, of course, first of all, I want to again make it clear that when it comes to Europe, Portugal is definitely one of the leading countries, one of the champions in terms of clean energy transitions. But even the champions can improve. So I would like to suggest 3 areas that the government may consider. And the first, the renovation of the buildings. This is important in terms of efficiency, reducing energy poverty, and creating jobs. This is number 1. Number 2, Mr. Minister mentioned the impressive number of electric car sales. They will only grow. Therefore, putting more emphasis on the development of charging infrastructures for EVs can be another area to consider from my point of view. And third and finally, Portugal made impressive achievements in terms of the wind, but the growth is slowing down. Therefore, there may be a need to repower the old sites and try to identify some new sites. So these are the 3 areas I would suggest. Thank you.
Many thanks, Dr. Birol. So this concludes the Q&A part and the launch presentation for the Portugal in-depth review. We'd like to thank the Minister for his attendance and all the participants as well. If you have more questions, please do send them to the press office at press@iea.org. I would like to remind everyone that the report is available in full and for free on our website. So once again, thank you very much for your attendance and see you next time. Thank you.
Just to say that it was really a pleasure to be here with you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Always. Thank you very much, and looking forward to see you in Lisbon and talk about other important things such as football. So we have to talk about that as well.
Yes, definitely. All the best for all of you and your relatives.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Bye-bye. Thank you.